Hello, everyone. My name is Val, your fellow child welfare professional out of Florida. Today, I have with me Mendy.
Hi, I'm Mindy Jones. I'm a child welfare professional from Iowa. Hey Val, what's up with those call center headset?
Oh gosh, you want to do this now, man? You want to do this now? Actually, I had a fancy headset, the wireless one, but it got ruined. I think it was a cheap one. It got ruined, so I had to go into these hardwired ones. So it's been working. It's been working pretty good so far with my trainings. But other than that, but today we have two special guests with us today. We have Dr. Parson and Miss Abigail. We're going to be discussing some of the key things that, as child welfare professionals, that we need to keep our mental health sane. Right. The goal today is for us to walk away with some key components, tools, right, that we could place into our mental health tool belt. So before we get into it, I want to properly introduce two of our guest speakers. I have their bio here, so I'm going to try my best not to read it word for word, but just bear with me. We have Dr. Parson. She's a clinical psychologist with over 25 years experience in working with children, adolescent, and adult. She specializes in addressing trauma and victimization issues, as well as vicarious trauma and compassion fatigue. All those are common terms in our field, right? Dr. Parson currently serves as a director for Lifetime Counseling Center, which is a local center for outpatient mental health and substance abuse treatment, and a program of the Space Coast Health Foundation. In addition to her role, she serves at a local task force and worked groups designed to help improving the overall health and wellness of the community. A side note for that, I was speaking with Dr. Laurie earlier. She's also an expert gardener. I'm hoping to get some tips from her on how to actually keep my tomatoes coming. And our second guest today is Miss Abigail Jones. She's a licensed marriage and family therapist with over 15 years experience in individual, family, and couples counseling. She specializes in adolescent delinquency issues, concurrent disorder treatment, and family counseling. Uh, Abby currently serves as the assistant director for Lifetime Counseling Center. In addition to her roles, well, you sound like you got a pretty busy schedule, Abby. And in addition to her role, she serves as a clinical supervisor for Brevard County Juvenile Drug Court and several other community task force. She's a mother of two. On her off time, ages of 5 and 9, she's a Canadian. Bonjour, right? And she's an avid hockey fan and loves the Vegas Golden Knights since she has lived in Las Vegas for over 20 years. She enjoys the beach and all water sports. I'm hoping you could give me some lessons on swimming. I'm still working on that. That's my goal this summer, is to learn how to swim.
It's definitely necessary if you live here in Florida.
If I accomplish that, I'll take that as a success. All right. So is there anything that you guys want to share with us before we get into the fun parts? No?
Just thank you. Thanks for inviting us and having us be part of this.
Right. Now, with this, we're looking at the groups. We have a child welfare professional group, and there's a lot of, just from the tone of the conversation that are taking place, there's a lot of anxiety that is going on with us in this industry, right? But we have to be the strong one that when we goes out to those homes to encourage them, to encourage those positive behavior changes. But at the same time, for our own selves, we need the support. The same support that the community we need it as well. So today's goal was, let's just have a small talk about some of the key things that we want to, key things that we could use, whether it's related to COVID-19 and stuff that we could apply later on, make it a regular practice. The first question I'm going to get into, I have a series of questions we're going to go through, but we'll just see where the conversation goes. So the first questions, we wrote down a few questions we wanted to ask you guys. And this is also, some of the questioning is driven from some of the key conversations that we're noticing in our group chat as well. The first one that I want to ask you guys is, we all know self-care is important in the field, right? Why is it particularly important as it relates to COVID-19? And what are some key strategies that you would recommend, that you would share with us when it comes to self-care?
Sure, good, very good questions. Um, there really, I would say, probably 3 or 4 different reasons why it's really important that we are particularly focused on self-care right now. One of which is just that with the way we're all having to respond to COVID, with quarantine and stay-at-home orders and all that sort of thing, there's a real lack of separation now between our work life and our home life that, at least for most of us, didn't exist before. So now, not only are we dealing with the stressors of work at one time and home stressors at another time, it's all kind of smushed together, and we're dealing with stressors of home and work throughout the day, trying to juggle doing our own jobs with possibly dealing with a child, or even having to negotiate who's going to be on the internet when, and if we're all on at the same time, then we have slow internet speed. And there are just so many different aspects of life now that are not the way they used to be, that increase stress. So that lack of boundary increases stress, having to juggle caring for kids or others at home, maybe even elderly adults that are at home, and trying to do our jobs at the same time, trying to negotiate space. If 2 adults in the home are both trying to work from home, who's going to sit where? How are we going to have conversations or Zoom meetings without disturbing the other person? So all of those things are increasing stress right now, and at a time when we don't want to impact our immune system, and we know that stress very much does negatively impact our immune system. So right at a time where we want to be as healthy as possible and have the strongest immune system we can, we're also experiencing a number of extra stressors that can negatively impact that immune system. So it's kind of a double whammy right now, which makes it, again, extra important to be able to do those self-care measures. And, they're not rocket science. We talk about ideas and strategies for self-care. I think we all know them. We all, especially in the field, that we're all in, and being in child welfare, we share those strategies probably a lot with the families that we work with. But it's hard sometimes to remember them for ourselves. I think some of the ones that are most important for us to focus on right now are boundaries, trying to make sure that we're having that communication with our families to create good boundaries, to have some kind of standard routine, because we're not necessarily having the routine that we used to have when we were going into the office every day, for example. So creating some kind of new routine that feels consistent, so it helps us feel a little bit more calm and settled. Certainly prioritizing things like getting a good night's sleep, nutrition, exercise, all those things we know, but we have a tendency not to be deliberate about them. And this is a time where we really need to be very intentional and be deliberate about setting aside time to do those self-care measures and get good sleep. Make sure we're paying attention to nutrition, getting some time alone each day, even if it's 5 minutes in the morning or at night before everybody gets up or after everybody goes to bed, to make sure that we just have a few minutes to gather our thoughts and spend some time alone. Those are all really, really key factors.
And one thing I wanted to add to that is, you said, it sounds like you're speaking to my household, to be honest with you. But one thing I want to add to that, you said routine. Like for me, for example, right, prior to COVID-19, I was like, I have to lose some weight, right? Just like everyone else. And I was doing pretty good. After I came home from work, I would actually go put on my sneakers and go for a run or two. But then since I've been home, I'm noticing that I'm so much out of my routine that I have to kind of like, okay, work is done, Val. Work is done. Because normally I would get home, change, put on some sweatpants, go for a run. But now that I'm home, I'm like, when does it stop?
Right. And there's no natural boundary.
Right. So I have to kind of like train myself to say, okay, all right, let's stop. Normally at 6 o'clock, you'd be running, Val. Why are you still in front of a computer? Why are, so let's get this going. So those are things that, like you were speaking, we as professionals, we have to get into creating a new routine, new boundaries. And if you think of moving forward, and a lot of us, if you think about it, that might be a new norm.
Yeah,
the ability to work from home might be a new norm. So we have to create those boundaries and create those routines. Thank you for that.
Absolutely.
And I would say too, just with that, one of the things that I've been doing is, because I too have had the struggle with the boundaries of where work starts and where home life, ends and starts, is just kind of keeping my work stuff in one area. So even though I'm still at home, I just have one space where I'm working. So I try to leave that when I'm done working and not go back, which I know is sometimes difficult. But
Yeah,
It's a good idea.
the another question we have is, what are some of the strategies for coping with the anxiety of going into the field during this time, as well as the uncertainty of the future impact of COVID-19 in our field?
Well, I think that's the question of the decade, I would say, truly.
Right.
We've heard it be tossed around in the media and in the news, and I think with us, it's very important to make sure that you're informed, but not over-informed. Again, we're going to the field, and we don't know truly what that this entails. We don't know how long it's going to last. We actually don't know for certain, who's contagious, who's not, who's asymptomatic, and it kind of gets overwhelming to know what you should be doing for your profession to keep yourself safe and to keep your family safe. So I think a good rule of thumb is, again, practice your safety measures as indicated by yourself or your company, and make sure that those are grounded. And when I say grounded, that you're getting your information from one source. Right now, if you look on the internet and you put out there, how do I stay safe in the environment of COVID-19? You will have thousands upon thousands, if not more, websites on what this person thinks. And everybody's got a different opinion. So it's, again, make sure you're fact checking and getting information, but don't overwhelm yourself. Pick one validated site, CDC, or here we use Florida Department of Health. And we kind of get our guidance and our information from there as an agency. And then again, it goes to leadership. So it's not just information. It's information, we review it, we see what we want to accept and what makes sense and what doesn't. And then we know at the end of the day, we're doing the best that we can. And truly, I think that's the one thing I found, and I know others have found helpful to decrease that kind of anxiety or that fearfulness, is accepting the unknown. This is scary. We don't have all the information, and we can only do what we can day by day. And that may change from, May to June, or from March to May. We've done things differently, but knowing that it is ever changing and it is unknown, and we have to be okay with that.
one thing I wanted to ask you when it came to dealing with the anxiety is, I have a friend of mine. He was in the military, and he has a app that he uses called mindfulness, right? So, I mean, if you guys could expand a little bit on that, because I've tried it a few times, but it takes times, right? The more you do it, the more you become more proficient at it. So if you guys could speak a little bit about some of the different techniques that, once we're seeing all this information coming at us on how to be safe, and is this person have the condition, or, all these different issues, what are some stuff that we could do to center, kind of like recenter ourselves? What are some techniques you guys have for us?
I love mindfulness. It's one of my favorite strategies. And the reason I love mindfulness is because, unlike many other strategies for relaxation or meditation, so to speak, when people are trying to do those different strategies, a lot of times it's all about trying to clear your mind, trying to shove thoughts out of your head and clear your mind. And that's very difficult for most of us to do. And it takes years of training and practice. So it can actually sometimes be more frustrating and stressful on the front end than helpful in centering. And the thing that's so beautiful about mindfulness is it very deliberately does not make you try to clear your mind. It is that process by which we attune to that very moment that we're in. What smells do we smell? What are we hearing? What are we seeing? What's the feeling of the chair that we're sitting on? We're tuning in that very moment to every different sensory experience that we're having. And that's how we end up relaxing. That's how we end up grounding ourselves, by not trying to get rid of what's happening to us and not pay attention to it, but by very much focusing on all of those sensory inputs in that moment. That's what keeps us focused in the here and now. And it's just I think it's a really great way to get grounded, to get centered. And it's so user-friendly that we even use it in schools. Many schools are using mindfulness in the classroom and teaching kids how to do mindfulness, which is amazing, because it is very much a user-friendly strategy. So that's definitely one that I love and use myself.
Okay, okay. Now, the next question that I have here is, could you give us some strategies for handling compounding stressors? Stress. Whoa, whoa. I'm having a hard time. So much
You
stresses, I can't
stressed
even
out?
say
Yeah.
the stressors, right? Some strategies of handling compounding stressors that might be affecting our families, such as financial strain,
Mm.
isolation from usual supports that we would have, whether it's from family members or colleagues, and also having our kids home all day. And
Mhm.
like for me, for example, I'm having a new appreciation for teachers and daycare folks. Now, and it's like sometimes I would think that, well, this teacher, like, well, what is this? You can't handle my son. Why you call? But then you're like, oh, I see why. The teacher was not wrong. You was wrong, right? So what are some techniques you have for us, dealing with these new stressors that we're not accustomed to?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think one of the most important things for us to do in the fields that we're in, both in mental health and child welfare, is give ourselves permission to be human. Because so often we're the people that are supporting other people, and we forget that we're allowed to get support ourselves as well. So first and foremost, that we recognize that we may have a spouse that's out of work right now. We do have potentially kids in the home, and all the same things going on for us that
Right.
everybody else does that we're dealing with. So that's critical, that we just give ourselves permission to be human and not be perfect. And then certainly some of the things we talked about before that Abby and I both mentioned, communication is key. Communicating with all those family members that are in the home all day, every day, to negotiate how are we gonna navigate this? Who's gonna be where? Who's gonna be doing what when? How are we gonna navigate the space that we're all kind of stuck in for a long period of time? Um, and then, setting those clear boundaries, again, not just about work and home, but with each other. Who gets to do what and how is it going to happen? Having that communication as a family is something that I think these days a lot of us take for granted and we don't do,
Right,
but is
right.
really critical. And it's one of the takeaways, I think, from this experience, that we're kind of forced to be deliberate about that communication with each other and really having to negotiate what's going on in the home.
And you said boundaries several times, and that is
Mhm.
something that, I think, Mendy, you could support me on that. We're the biggest offenders when it
Sure.
comes to boundaries, because we have that phone, we have those families, we're concerned, right?
Mhm.
So it's kind of like when you're at home with your own family, your mind is somewhere else. So when the phone rings, you're like, let me find out what is going on, because in this field we're in it because we're passionate about what we do. It's not for the paycheck, because we're passionate. So with that said, the lack of boundary, we really like intermingle our personal lives with our work life.
Mhm.
And sometimes there's, several times, I've attended several work-life balance training, but we all know when they tell you these key things that you should be doing, you're like, oh yeah, that's what I don't do. That's what I don't do. Yep, I
Mhm.
definitely don't do that one. I don't do that one. So it's, the work-life balance, or those boundaries are key. And I think we got to keep reminding ourselves, let's make those boundaries, let's set those boundaries and stick to it. Not just say it, but really, okay, I said at 6 o'clock, I was not going to pick up my phone. I was going to spend time with my daughter. Let me do that. Or I was going to take my spouse for dinner. Well, order dinner. We don't take folks out to dinner anymore,
Right.
right?
There's no going.
We was going to order dinner, right? So those things, when it comes to boundaries, we don't want to, and we want to keep those clear for
Mhm.
our own mental health.
Yeah.
Um, Now, what are some, if you think of, actually, Mendy, I'll let you, I've been speaking a lot, so I'll let you take on the mic for a little bit.
I would definitely agree with you, though, that we really probably struggle the most with boundaries, which is interesting because it is something we often talk to our clients and families about,
Right.
is good boundaries. So I definitely agree with that. And I know for me, just one of the points that were so important to hear today is when Dr. Lori was talking, you guys were talking about the mindfulness app, and because I have tried so many times to get things out of my mind, and it does become more frustrating that I can't do that. And so looking into the mindfulness app, I think, is something I'm going to do. But I guess one of the other questions would be is what other resources are out there for anyone who might need additional mental health support?
Again, there's a plethora. Again, depends on where you're at.
Right.
I know we always, again, on a call that comes into our agency, if we can't support the needs of a client, we'll go ahead and refer them to our local 211. So, and most of the states have that, to the ability to call a general hub and kind of say, this is what's going on for me. Where can I get some resources? Again, I know that in other countries, I know Canada specifically, they have the provincial services for the government that they can call to kind of get that information as well, because it's going to differ county to county, state by state, and country to country on kind of availability and things of that nature. I know personally, I like the NAMI.org website, the National Association, or excuse me, Alliance of Mental Health Illnesses. It has a lot of good information and just kind of tidbits of resources that I think folks can use, including professionals. They have a whole section for professionals and how to take care of yourself in this field.
You know, one thing I wanted to say too is we take it for granted. EAP, is that? Do you have that in your state, Mindy? EAP,
Yes.
right? I think that's pretty much a nationwide program. Different companies provide it to their employee. So I also wanted to put that out there. That is a good resources as well, right? When you're dealing with those, you just need to talk to someone, some guidance as to where to go. You know, you could just call, you know, reach out to your leadership, and I'm sure they'll be able to assist you and provide you, you know, where to get that information.
And, you know, I think one of the other things that's come a lot with COVID and everything that we're dealing with are all the online resources. I mean, there were several out there already, but it has really just exploded in terms of the access to resources that are not face-to-face resources, health services, online. You talked about the mindfulness app. I saw a website the other day that had probably 30 different apps on it that were all related to self-help, mental health, relaxation, those kinds of things. So there's just a plethora of stuff out there as well that's all virtual that we can tap into now.
Right. Okay, well, what the next question that I have is for you guys. What are some positive takeaways that we can carry from that we've learned from COVID-19 that we could carry moving forward? You know, if you think about it, what are some positive takeaway that you would, you know, that we could take with us? You know.
Well, and I always say, and I think besides my children learning that washing your hands is absolutely necessary, I think
right.
That's perfect. I've been trying to get that into them since they were little. Yeah, on a serious note, it's the flexibility. I think, yes, we're always flexible because we are providers and we do work with people who, you know, you need to be flexible. This has pushed us in terms of mental health providers and child welfare workers and kind of anybody, you know what, I just say anybody in general, to think outside the box and how we get everything done we need to get done, both professionally and personally. So it's kind of shown us and pushed us to be more creative when I think a lot of us just go to what we know because it's standard routine. And now we have a new routine. We have new tools in our toolbox. Again, I think sometimes folks get afraid or scared off of telehealth. Now it's been shown in a lot of people, although maybe not their favorite modality, they've been able to say, hey, you know what, this works for its purpose. So they're willing to try things that they haven't been before. And I think because of COVID-19, we have to look clearly kind of at more positives. Stop and take that moment and be mindful and understand and have the ability to go, you know what, maybe my grass being 1.5 inches really isn't a big deal right now. Maybe my kiddos are because they need some extra attention. So I think it's bringing us back to some of the things that are truly important in our lives that kind of get lost in the day-to-day shuffle when we're out running around and running errands and buying groceries and going to dinner and things of that nature. Again, it's a different time and I think more will come out of it, but it's also, I think human nature. It seems that because we are in a tough time, people are more forgiving. Parents are more forgiving, you know, bosses are more forgiving. Families are more forgiving of each other's shortcomings because we're humans. It's something good to remember, I think. And I do think that will kind of continue as we kind of roll out of this, whatever that looks like.
Right.
Absolutely.
You know, if you think of, you know, take away, for me, for example, I'm thinking, you know, I wasn't very technology savvy, right? And I think COVID-19, even this platform alone, really pushed us to the next level of, you know, of there are other ways to keep in touch with family members, loved ones. I'm thinking of, sometimes you don't want to call, or I would go see so-and-so, but they live so far. But because of COVID-19 now, we have to use this. So hopefully this will be something that we'll use in the future, that will keep us more connected versus us being more isolated. This will kind of like push us, those folks that live far away from us, that could be an easy way to keep in touch with them and get the support, or provide them the support that they need.
Absolutely.
And I definitely think, just taking the time to realize what's important. We do get so busy, and now we've kind of just had to slow down a little bit. So I think that's been important for me and for my family. So, but we want to thank you, Dr. Lori and Abigail, for joining us today. Is there anything else you guys want to share?
I don't think so. Just, most importantly, take care of yourself, and remember that it's okay to be human. That's probably our biggest downfall.
Yeah. I love that saying, it's okay to be human. Yeah. I know that if you really think about it, sometimes we have to tell, it is okay, Val. It is okay to be human.
Yeah, absolutely.
I always thought I had to be a superhero, but no, it's okay to be just a human.
Yeah.
But all right, is there anything else that we want to cover? I think we had a good discussion today.
Yeah,
and I'm
absolutely.
looking forward for future one. And if you guys have any information that you want us to, because we're going to be posting this, if there's any other additional information you want us to share with our members, and I got to keep remembering to put my hand down when I'm speaking. Zoom thing. So if there's any resources that you want us to share with our members that are applicable nationwide, definitely we'll post it up and definitely put it out there to our members, to our followers.
Absolutely.
All right. Pretty much that's it. I'm Val, and
I'm Mindy.
we are
We're child welfare professionals, and we hope we can stay connected.
You see how we stumbled towards the end, but we did good. We
We
made it through.
stumbled.
All right.
Right? We
Take
did
care,
good.
guys.
All right, guys. Have a good one.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.